If you have 4 people, you can do 2 teams, and the first one to fill up the water wins. Or if you have 2 people, you can take turns and see who can fill it up the fastest. We're just gonna go ahead and get started in the demo. Miss Stacy is gonna take her position. Miss Miranda will go ahead and stand next to her and take 2 steps forward and turn. Doesn't need to be a big distance between y'all, because no matter what, it's gonna be difficult. Let's go. Go! So, Miss Miranda, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Okay. I'm not a good aim.
Realize if we were playing this, Miss Miranda would be next, and Miss Stacy would be the one aiming. It is a whole lot of fun. Isn't it, Miss Stacy? There you go.
All right, would like to welcome and call to order the City Council regular meeting agenda for Monday, July the 24th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. If you would all please rise and join us as Councilmember Carbone leads us in an invocation, followed by Councilmember Patel in the pledges to our flags. Thank you.
Y'all would bow with me. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for all our blessings. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to serve here in this great city. Be with all our first responders here in the city and everyone around the globe protecting our freedoms. Be with the deliberations tonight. Let us do your work and get us everyone home safely, the citizens and all the staff here. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
All right, thank you for that, and thank you for joining us tonight here at City Hall as we look forward to this agenda. As we always do, we will be able to go point by point. So with that, we'll turn to roll call and certification of quorum. Madam Secretary, I'll certify we have a quorum present as all members of the council are present. With that, we'll move to citizens' comments. I believe we have one Mayor Pro Tem, is that correct?
Yes, Mayor. Karen,
Kroneger.
is it Kroneger?
Yep.
If you'd head to the podium, state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you for coming out this evening.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. I'm here today to address the issues in my neighborhood known as Dixie Hollow or Sleepy Hollow. The specific address in question is going to be 1615 Sleepy Hollow Drive. My own list of non-emergency calls that I have placed myself are May 10th, 6:18, and 7:04. The original owner of 1615 Sleepy Hollow was Sam Progue. He passed away on May 5th. In the ensuing time period, the house has been occupied by unknown persons or non-family members. There are now more people living there than have or were prior to his living there. Since then, we have had 6 documented violations or arrests from their address alone, 2 city ordinance violations, 1 that resulted in an arrest, 1 Class C traffic offense, 1 unregistered motor vehicle violation that resulted in another arrest, along with 2 accidents that resulted in 1 arrest. Other undocumented incidences have been street fighting between the current residents as caught on camera by multiple neighbors, as well as multiple property trespassing also caught on camera. Non-emergency has been called, but no reports have been filed. Responding officers have given full access to our recorded security footage of times and confrontations that did not result in reports being filed. As a result of this situation in crowded street parking, as a mother, I do not feel safe in letting my children ride their bikes around the neighborhood. I do not let them ride the school bus, as is only 2 stops away from the house in question, and I do not feel safe as a resident of Dixie Hollow, Sleepy Hollow neighborhood. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Kroneger. I think this is something Darren and Trent, we probably ought to have, number one, code enforcement take a look at, but I think it's a squatter situation, so legally, be a little interesting how we can work on it, but it's certainly code enforcement issues we can get in the middle of. So
We'll get an update.
Bringing that to our attention tonight.
To ongoing actions, we'll get some update.
Right. Okay. Look forward to that. With it, is that all citizens' comments for the? All right. Moving forward, consent agenda. Mr. Carbone, would you present that items A through G with the exception of item C as in Charlie?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, approval of consent agenda items A through G, with the exception of C, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Camcar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Berry?
Aye.
Member Patel,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Koza.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Mr. Carbone, if you would, go ahead and present item C. If council concurs, we're going to go ahead and just dispense with C. I think there's one quick comment that wants to be made, and we'll move forward.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, Resolution R 2023-166, so moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Staff presentation?
Thank you, Mayor. So this item is council adopting a repetitive loss area analysis that our engineering team conducted as part of our community rating system process so that we can gain additional points as part of that. That's part of the National Flood Insurance Program. And so the purpose for doing that is that if we can improve our CRS rating, that will result in deeper discounts for flood insurance for Pearland residents that qualify. So we're recommending adoption of the repetitive loss area analysis.
All right. Member Barry, you pulled this. Turn it to you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a point here that, for a property to be in the repetitive loss program, they have to have had 2 losses, 2 flood claims within the last 10 years. So those of you in Pearland that have had or gotten a letter saying that your property's in the repetitive loss program, with the passage of the last bond, we've affected every single one of these areas with the bond drainage program that we just recently passed. So I just wanted to kind of point out the importance of what we've done with the bond and the citizens voted for and they're all in favor of. But more importantly, it will directly affect those of you that are in a repetitive loss property. So that's all I really wanted to say, Mayor.
Good deal. In fact, the criteria for a lot of the projects, one of the top criteria was repetitive flood losses, rose to the top. Projects that help reduce repetitive flood losses in the area. And want to be careful with the bond program to state that it's not going to do away with every situation.
No.
But it's going to take a big dent into it. So, but it's a good thing that we do it. And once we get it addressed, we can actually make things a little bit better for people's insurance as well. So any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Carbone,
Aye.
Member Kamkar,
Aye.
Member Hernandez,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Berry,
Aye.
Member Patel,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Koza.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, moving forward in our agenda, Member Kamkar, if you would, 1, 2, and 3 are all together. So if you would, go ahead and present all 3, and we will vote on them separately. All right.
Consideration and possible action resolution R2023-136, R2023-135, and R2023-134. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Member Kozo is going to give you the first opportunity before we go to staff report.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I will be recusing myself on item number 3, Resolution R2023-134 this evening. The company that I work for, American Materials, is a customer of ours and has been a customer for the last 30 to 35 years. And one other thing that I wanted to point out, when we have these type items that council members recuse themselves, it's not that the council members that recuse themselves are doing anything nefarious or illegal. This right here is how the state of Texas guides us in what needs to be done and how we do it. This is specifically an item that, like I said, we have had a customer for 30 to 35 years, and I have no impact on this vote on this item, so I will be recusing myself tonight for that purpose.
So when we get that, we'll make sure that Councilmember Koza can recuse on 3, but you can vote on 1 and 2. Okay, with that, staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. The first of these 3 items that go together is they're all for our asphalt paving program that we do in conjunction with Brazoria County. So the first item is actually our interlocal agreement for paving services with the county. And this is an annual interlocal agreement that we do with the county where they provide the equipment and they provide the personnel to pave our asphalt streets as part of this program. where we buy the materials, which the materials are covered by the next two items. We use our pavement condition index, as you know, to guide which roads we include in this program. And so for this year, what is included is Fight Road between Harkey and McLean, Garden Road between Broadway and the city limit line, Walnut between Old Alvin and Broadway, Hawk between Cullen Parkway and Norfolk, and Hill House from Hughes Road basically to its dead end to the north. It's a total of approximately 4.14 miles, and it says it's going to start earlier in the write-up, but we just found out today, based on where the county is with the rest of their work this year, they're looking to start early September. So then I'll cover the second item. That's for the emulsified asphalt from P Squared Emulsions in the amount of approximately $240,000. The bulk of that we use with Brazoria County as part of the paving work they do. And then we reserve about $25,000 of that for the in-house work that our public works crews do. And then the third item is the contract with American Materials for the hot mix asphalt. That's an approximate amount of about $588,000. And we work through our interlocal agreement with Brazoria County where we can buy off their contracts. So they bid contracts out that have much higher volume than we would. So we take advantage of the discounts there and use the buying power of the county. So that's the actual asphalt that they'll lay down, and the bulk of that, again, is for the work with the county, and we reserve about $60,000 of that for our in-house paving program. And with that, Mayor, we recommend approval of all three items.
All right, thank you for that. Turn to council, questions, comments, concerns? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. Trent, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions on Walnut. As we all know, the part that's being looked at, I think, has a 36 score in our road scoring. When we do projects like this, we've got two right now that you and I have discussed on several occasions. I know that there's a certain limit that we can do, but in this, when we did the, I guess, western part of Walnut, if you want to call it that, this being such a short piece of road, why don't we do the road through and through to where it's done instead of leaving this one short piece for another time period?
So I may turn to Eric or someone on his staff to cover that, but I know that segment is in much worse shape than everything west of Old Alvin, and with the limited amount that we do with the county each year, we were trying to get some other things that were a higher priority, but this one has kind of popped up.
West of what I'm talking about, when we talk about Old Alvin west to 35, that was paved, I don't know, a year or two ago.
It was after the detention pond was built.
Okay.
And so we did that whole section, and that part was rough, just as rough as what we're going to be doing here if it passes this evening. But to me, it's odd that we pick and stop in an area when we have such a short distance
So
left
I guess the question is, why last time we did that, did we stop at Old Alvin? And
yes,
we didn't
because
go to
I got hit up. I wasn't even on council. People were asking me, why in the hell are they doing this? And, and I don't know, but it's one of those deals when I see it. We've got two other instances right now in the city and in the county that we have some issues with, same kind of thing, where it might be 300-400 feet.
Sure. So I don't really know the answer to what happened when that was done. I'll see if Eric does. I do know the other instance where the county between 100 and Bailey had stopped at the city limit lines. We're working with them to get that all included within the contract work that they're doing right now. So we're going to get that added.
I had reached out on that one and said that they just simply forgot about that. So, but you know, it's that type deal that this is the third one that I've seen, and I would ask staff and basically to work with the county, work with within the city of Pearland to kind of address one road when it starts and it, you know, not when it crosses over the railroad tracks.
Sure. Eric may be able to give some more background on the last go around.
Yes, sir, Member Coase. I'll add just a little bit. So the last time that Walnut was improved, west side of 35, it was a project-related improvement, a little bit outside of the operations perspective. But the good news is council recently approved the IMS pavement condition survey. So that survey is underway as we speak right now. There's a van canvassing our community, and very soon we'll have fresh data to tell us and help us direct our maintenance and operation program. We will definitely take to consideration doing the full breadth or limits of a roadway moving forward, just so that way there's no confusion as to what starts and what stops. This road package was based on work order history and PCI, which is why we work to use that data-driven approach. But moving forward, we'll look and see if we need to include a little bit broader span just to make sure that we're clear to our customers.
I understand that. It's just one of those deals. This is a 36. The other roads that are on this are in the low 60s.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, at the time that from Old Alvin to 35, when it was done, this piece, in my opinion, should have been done at the same time. But we've got 2 other locations within the city and the county that we have similar issues right now.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, comments? Member Carbone?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. The Hawk and Hill House, that surrounds Dawson High School. I've heard from a lot of folks out there, they're excited that we got this approved. But seeing as how school starts in, 3 weeks, I don't know what scheduling looks like, but maybe if you could reach out to administrators there or somebody at the district just to give them a heads up.
So I think we've got a plan for that, and maybe Eric can go through the details on that.
Sure, I'll just touch briefly. Dante Prescott's been in contact with Brazoria County Drainage District, Brazoria County Paving, rather. And the plan in place currently is to go ahead and conduct operations on Garden Street first, allow school to begin, allow the new student drivers and parents to become familiar with school traffic and routing. That allows us some additional runway to work with the school district for the work in that area. And right now, we're forecasted to be around Hawk and Hill House during the November Thanksgiving break. So we're working to try and align our schedules with the county and with the school break, just so we have minimal impacts and reduce as much of the tracking out onto the roadway as possible, sir.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Member Camcar?
Just really quickly, if we didn't have this cooperation with the county, what would this have cost us out of pocket?
So we bid some similar work out last year, and I don't know if you have off the top of your head, Eric, kind of the cost difference, per foot, or however we would, what would it take to do about 4 miles through the contract we did last year?
Yes, sir, Mr. Representative. So you may remember just a few weeks ago, the staff presented on the CIP Drainage and Transportation update. In that, we shared that the team had improved the roadways within Garden Acres subdivision as well as Clear Creek subdivision. Clear Creek is probably the most similar in length, and I believe that project cost us right at about $850,000.
I just want to point out, I appreciate the county working with us. They don't have to, but I feel like they're being good partners, so glad to have their help.
Any other questions, comments? Yeah, I was going to echo that. It's been a cooperative with our county for quite some time, many decades now, and so it's really good. It's your tax dollars, your road and bridge dollars that you go and pay when you renew your vehicle that goes to the county, and it's dollars that are coming back into the city to help with certain roadways. So it's been a very good cooperative, like I said, over many years. I'm glad to see we're getting this year. It looks like double the lane miles that we had last year. Around 2.5 miles last year, and a little over 4 miles this year. So glad to see it, and hopefully we can get more done sooner rather than later. So with that, Madam Secretary, I'm going to call them one at a time. Let's call for the vote on item number 1.
Member Camcar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Berry?
Aye.
Member Patel?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Koza?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, Madam Secretary, number 2.
Member Camcar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Berry?
Aye.
Member Patel?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Koza?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
With that, item 3.
Member Camcar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Berry?
Aye.
Member Patel?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, thank you for that.
Get Joseph.
All right. With that, would you, Mayor Pro Tem, present item number 4, please?
Sure thing, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, resolution number R2023-174. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report.
Jeez Louise.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a contract to renew with our electrical service contractor, Boyer, in the estimated amount of $500,000. This contract is used for electrical repairs at all of our utility infrastructure, including our water plants, wastewater plants, lift stations, and stormwater pump stations. And in addition to all of our plants and utility infrastructure, we use them on all of our city facilities as well. There's no cost increase associated with this renewal, and this is the last renewal before we will rebid. The contract does also include that they have an emergency response time of 2 hours, since they are responding to critical infrastructure things, especially during events. So, they've always done a very good job being able to come alongside of us during an emergency response anytime we have any electrical issues. So with that, we recommend awarding the renewal to Boyer in the estimated amount of $500,000.
All right. Questions, comments from council?
I just
None,
want to make
Madam-
sure I understand it correctly. It's up to 500,000, right? I mean, this is it's net of actual expenses.
That's correct. So we have an estimated amount based on historical cost. We actually pay by the hour, and then any equipment or materials, there's a designated markup amount over that was all part of the original bid. So we pay for what we use. So you can see in previous years where we've estimated about 500,000, and we've seen years where we were close to that, and some years where we were as low as 358,000 over the past 5 years. So we actually expend what we actually use.
Any other questions, comments?
Just wondered if there was someone here from Boyer.
Not sure.
Thank you.
Mayor, quick question on attachment B. There's the pricing schedule, and it shows
Journeyman's more expensive.
a master electrician rate, emergency rate at $142.50 an hour, but then the journeyman at $145 an hour. I'm not licensed for either of those, but I thought the master was above the journeyman. So I would, if not, we should just have the master out and save $2.50 an hour.
Is there a difference? I mean, I'm just waiting for. I had the same question. That's why I was.
Interesting. Any other questions, comments?
How about we postpone this until the next meeting when we have somebody from Boyer here?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to postpone. I don't believe that's debatable. Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote on postponing.
Mayor Pro Tem Koza?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
No.
Member Camcar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
No.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Member Berry?
Aye.
Member Patel?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-2.
I guess, Mayor, I know that wasn't debatable, but my
Yeah.
question was, I mean, this is for emergency services, and it's dated effective tomorrow, so that was my no vote.
I suggest we have Boyer on the phone ASAP, see what's going on. It's postponed for tonight. Mr. Hernandez, would you present item 5, please?
Yes, sir. Consideration possible action resolution number R2023-173. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a construction contract award to rehabilitate the Bella Vita Regional Lift Station and also add a generator to that lift station. It's necessary based on the age and the condition of that lift station. Neary Construction was the only bidder, but it was under the engineer's estimate. And based on our recent bidding climate, we believe this to be a good bid, and that rebidding it, taking the time to rebid it, is unlikely to lower the cost. So we are recommending moving forward. Additionally, Neary is a known contractor that's performed well in the past, and the project schedule is to have it completed by April 24, and we're recommending the award in the amount of $1,580,004.
All right, turn to council. Questions, comments, concerns? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Hernandez.
Aye.
Member Cade.
Aye.
Member Barry.
Aye.
Member Patel.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Koza.
Aye.
Member Carbone.
Aye.
Member Camcar.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, with that, Ms. Cade, would you present item 6, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action, resolution number R 2023-177, so moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Turn to staff report. You might also point out a similar name to the previous one.
Will do. So this is another item, much like the last one, where we're renewing our older infrastructure. This one, however, is replacing transite water lines in the South Corrigan subdivision. It also increases the line size of some of the smaller 2, 3, and 4-inch lines that are in that subdivision with a minimum of 6-inch lines, which helps us improve our fire protection in that area. The project will use trenchless construction, so it'll have minimal impact on the residents throughout the neighborhood. In this one, we received 4 bids with Neary Brothers Construction, a different but related company to the last bid we just awarded. I believe there's brothers, and one runs one company and one runs the other, is my understanding. And so they were the low bidder on this project, and construction scheduled to be completed by May of next year. And so we're recommending award to Neary Brothers in the amount of $2,563,457. Thank you, Mayor.
Good deal. Questions, comments? Mr. Camcar?
Mr. Representative, I was reading through the memo, and in one place, the recommendation from the, I guess, consulting engineer was that the Neary Brothers was higher than our estimate, and in another place, in the memorandum that was a write-up, we were 8% below. Can you kind of just help me understand that?
So I'm looking at the recommendation letter, and the engineer's estimate was a little over $200,000 higher than the low bidder.
Member Kemcar, are you talking about the statement on the base bid versus the?
It's on the South Corrigan one. I'll read the quote. The total bids amount for the base bid and the alternate exceeds the city's available budget. Recommends going with the base bid.
So we bid some alternate work because there was some additional work just out, I think it was just outside the neighborhood that we were trying to see if we could fit within this budget. We couldn't, so we're just recommending the award of the base bid tonight. And we've got some future projects where we'll look at picking up that additional work in the future. But that's what that means, is we didn't have budget available for that. But the engineer's estimate was actually a couple $100,000 higher than the low bid.
Where do we find the hole for, I guess, the 200,000 or 300,000? Where do we have funds available to take care of that?
So no, what we're awarding tonight fits within the budget.
Okay, so it's the excess that in theory would push us over.
So what would have put it over the budget is the alternate items that we bid. We're not awarding the alternate items.
Okay, that clears it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Cade.
Aye.
Member Barry.
Aye.
Member Patel. Mayor Pro Tem Koza.
Aye.
Member Carbone.
Aye.
Member Camcar.
Aye.
Member Hernandez.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, with that, Mr. Berry, would you present item 7, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Consideration and possible action resolution number R 2023-175. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Staff report.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is to renew our health insurance benefits, the stop loss with Cigna, and renew dental with Cigna, as well as the vision plan with Unum and the flex spending account with WEX Discovery for our fiscal year 24. The highlights of the renewal is this is the third and final year of our administrative guarantee with Cigna as our administrator. There we were able to, our consultant hub was able to negotiate a 0% increase in the stop loss premium to the deductible, but with the deductible going from 125 to 150, we feel very comfortable with that because we've had significantly less than the number of cases that would have would drive the cost higher with the higher stop loss. So in total, it results in about a 2.7% increase. And so with that, we'll be able to continue covering 100% of our employee-only coverage for folks that are on the Kelsey Care 80 plan, and we will continue with 64% coverage for dependents. And that does come with an increase to the city's cost and a very slight increase to employees' cost as well, but we were able to keep that pretty small. And then this also will approve the final year of our dental rate guarantee, and there's no increase with vision. And we do have Julian Fontana here with Hub, our benefits consultant, in case there are any questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions, comments from council? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote.
Member Berry?
Aye.
Member Patel?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Koza?
Aye.
Member Carbone?
Aye.
Member Kamkar?
Aye.
Member Hernandez?
Aye.
Member Cade?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
I was going to say, grab that renewal and run with it. So, very good. Exactly. With that, we'll move to matters removed from consent agenda. We already had the one we dispensed of. Other business, there is none. Moving to mayor council issues for city council discussion. One, discussion regarding one, UDC requirements for hotels, and two, management district board representation. So with that, I'm going to turn first to Member Patel. I believe you asked for these as the sponsor to place this on the agenda, so I'll kick it to you first.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things what I wanted to discuss with this council was being in the hotel business. I know our town is certainly very prosperous in a lot of ways, but we also struggle in that business. And one of the things I've noticed, and I'm sure you have too, a lot of the smaller hotels are getting deflagged in our community. If you had the opportunity to go to Kemah on Nassau Road 1, passing through Seabrook, some of the hotels that have gone from La Quinta Inn to, I believe they're called Captain's Inn, and Comfort Suites went from that to like Edgewater Inn, and they're becoming a lower tier brand, right? The problem we're having in this community also, it is getting older. And tonight we had a discussion about what does a community needs to look like. And one of the things that concerns me is certainly if somebody came in here and wanted to build a low-end hotel, this council would shut it down. But the issue is our current hotels, you cannot stop from deflagging and making it a lower-end hotel. So I recently have been talking to Darren, and I have a friend who owns hotels in Dallas area, specifically in Grapevine. Now, in Grapevine, it is a code that no hotels can be less than 120 rooms, must have a restaurant, must have a bar, must have a conference space. It is their choice to have a higher end quality of living. And my suggestion would be to this council that we also consider something like that to restrict these smaller hotels. Now, I will tell you, I had asked two of the owners of the smaller hotels, and me being one of them. I have a property that's only 61 rooms. Certainly, the investment is significantly higher to maintain those hotels. And I had asked the owners of the hotels to be here, and they had agreed to come, but they also support this. They actually want this to be in place. And I think you'll find when you look at it as a long-term plan, this will be good for our community. And we talk about the strip centers, the amount of strip centers that are going up and the quality of the strip centers are deteriorating. This is the same thing. So this is what I would ask you guys to consider. Put something in writing. I know we do have some sort of a restriction, but I think this kind of tells the developer before they come to us to say, if you're not going to meet some of these criteria, we're not going to entertain this, right? That we want to go to the next step for our community. And one last piece of advice I would give you. I know the EDC has, for several years, said they want to build a conference center hotel. That's what we want to see next. The problem, again, if you look at the study, if you keep allowing these smaller hotels to pop in our community, you'll never get to that because they'll keep eating at the demand that's there. And so I would strongly ask that you look at putting our city to the next set of higher end hotels. And so that is my reasoning. I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have any.
Good deal. I think it's certainly worth a discussion. Member Cade, you were second. Did you want to weigh in on some of this real quick?
No, I think what he said made sense. I do think the level of service provided and just aesthetics and for our city, just how it looks means a lot. So I think what he proposed makes sense.
I think anytime we're moving in a direction of better quality, that's something that we want. And how we do that, of course, is in the devil's always in the details, as they say. I'll open it up to questions to either Mr. Patel or to staff on how this would look. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, so let me understand what you're saying here is you're talking our existing hotels. You do not want to be able to deflag or unbrand, whatever you want to call it, to become whatever they might call their hotel. Is that my understanding?
No, sir, I'm not saying that. They can certainly deflag. We currently have one on Miller Ranch Road that deflagged, and it's called Pearlands Motel, or Hotel, I believe. And it's, talking to Manny, most of you know Manny, one of the reasons was the cost was just significant to reinvest, and this market is struggling. And the problem is, you will probably get somebody else who will build a 60-room. They may come in here and say, hey, we want to build a new hotel. It's going to be 60 rooms, and we might say yes. The problem is it's going to continue to eat at these smaller hotels' expense, and so these smaller hotels will never reinvest in their property. Does that make sense? So prime example just down the road is, and during the earlier meeting, we talked about cities that we want to compare ourselves to, and we kept saying Sugar Land and whatever else, Caney. Yeah. The problem when we look at it, we're also not forcing new developers to come in here to go a step above what we already have, right? In the quality wise. And so what my point is trying to tell you guys is, look at Seabrook. Seabrook is the exact example I'm trying not to do. Seabrook started out with one hotel, if you guys are familiar with Seabrook. It used to have one Holiday Inn Express, 2 stories, right down on Nassau Road 1. Today, I believe it's a Quality Inn. Then Seabrook allowed 2 more hotels to come in. One was a 45-room Comfort Inn and another 60-room La Quinta. Both of them have been deflagged. Now today, they're probably selling rooms at $50 an hour or $50 a day. Probably. But my point to you is, Seabrook can't stop that. Right. They cannot stop it, right? So resources are being pulled for non-emergency calls. It's the clientele is different. My point to you is, no one's willing to build anymore because the area is deteriorated. Matter of fact, we have a Marriott brand hotel there, and believe me when I tell you, it's not the site to drive through Seabrook is not the site you want to see.
So are you looking for an ordinance for future development? Is that
exactly right? Yes, sir.
So not deflagging, it's just you want to set a standard.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't think we can guarantee somebody not to get deflagged from their main one. I don't think we can guarantee that. What you're asking for is the minimum requirements for a hotel in Pearland need to go from here to here. That's what you're looking for. And you and I had, just to be fair, had this discussion with Member Patel 12 years ago, right before I left council in 2010, and there's some other reasons we don't want certain smaller hotels either. And you've already mentioned, one of those, they become very inexpensive. I'll say that instead of using the word cheap overnight, and you can go just outside of Pearland and you can see what we're talking about. And that is not what we want. Definitely not what we want. But the more amenities, and that's the key factor. Rooms, the number of rooms at a certain amount, the number of amenities, restaurant, bar, meeting space, conference, those types of things drive that up.
That's right.
And the likelihood of not necessarily deflagging, because that could still happen, but the likelihood of it becoming a C property is less likely. And I think that's really what we're trying to do, is trying to keep things at an A property and trying to keep things from going from A to a C, let alone a D, and moving down the line. Fair way to.
Yes, sir. Very fair.
Any other questions, comments? Member Kamkar?
I've got a couple of points of information, so I'd like to ask the staff. We're talking about regulating essentially hotels, or regulating standards around hotels. Is that
in the UDC, setting standards in the UDC?
Just John, anybody, have we ever had an issue, anybody ask us about this item? Has this topic come up in the last year, 5 years, 10 years around regulations in the UDC around hotels?
No, I mean, the only issue we have right now is that every hotel has to be approved by a CUP, and therefore that's been the control that the council has over any project.
What happens, let's say a hotel comes tomorrow, somebody comes and applies, what's the regulatory standard that they need to meet?
They'd have to meet the development standards for whatever zoning district they're coming into. And then we would set up the process of the P&Z and through the council like any CUP now.
So the P&Z would have a vote in this case, and then in this current scenario that we have, the current framework, then they would have to come here.
Yes, it's similar to, let's say, with the PDs. We've done say behind town center, right? A year ago, a couple years ago, we had a townhome community come in, propose for that area. Council decided they didn't like it, that it didn't meet the standards of the community. Lately,
Is that the one that the Sullivan guy came a few months, and then like the next week,
exactly,
the next guy came.
And then recently, we've had another builder propose a different project at that same property behind town center, and it received a warmer welcome, but it was a higher standard development. And so it's that process now in place where a project comes before you that you don't believe is proper for Pearland, you have the right to reject the CUP.
My concern is we're a solution in search of a problem. We currently have a structure that works, that everybody has to apply to. It goes through, I guess, I would say 3 levels of scrutiny: at the staff level, the P&Z level, and then here. We had a discussion less than 3 hours ago about how do we make things smoother of a process, how to incentivize businesses, and I'm just struggling of how we do that. I'm in the low regulation part of the world. I'm also somebody who works in and around housing. I want us to have nice things. Our city is evolving, and we want it to evolve in a nice manner. But even if this ordinance is approved, at least from my vantage point, somebody can go build 120 rooms and they can go deflag tomorrow. And in theory, we haven't really solved the problem. So I'm struggling to see the merit right now with where we are and where it's going. There's a reason we have the processes that we have. The CUP is a more stringent process that is open to more scrutiny. I feel like we have larger items to address. I would respectfully, for the body, let us go through the UDC process. We had a budgeted item for $300,000 to rewrite the UDC because of the issues with the financial crisis that we had at the city less than 6 months ago. we gutted that $300,000 as part of that. I really think we should let the staff drive the discussion on this. The fact that this hasn't been brought up in recent memory by our director just tells me that there's not the driver of this as an overwhelming issue. I'm more excited when we do the transit pipe thing otherwise, but those are just my feelings. I don't want to belabor it. I just feel like there's already a lot of scrutiny there.
I will just add that we do have a few items that require CUPs that do have minimum requirements incorporated in the UDC to better guide those who might be interested in establishing those businesses in Pearland, but they're mostly limited to, say, massage establishments, tobacco smoking areas, CBD stores. Those are the ones where typically we've come to y'all because we've heard concerns from the community and the council, and we've a lot of level standards for those.
John, I would agree with you. I mean, we've had people just in my time on this council, which is short compared to some of the other members here, where people have complained about vape shops and liquor stores across from a school. Like we can point in the record about that. On this particular item, it's not to say that they hasn't happened or won't happen, and I have a funny feeling the next meeting I will have 15 people come here and tell me this is a major issue in the city, but it just hasn't come up. And I think with 3 layers of scrutiny, not broke, don't fix. That's kind of my feeling right now. But you know, I've been to the will of the council. It's just my 2 cents.
Member Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. John, to that, wanted to kind of maybe ask, so there's currently no zoning class where hotels can be built by right, everything has to go through CUP?
Correct. For those zoning districts that hotels are allowed in, they have to acquire a CUP before they can begin their projects.
Right. Yeah, I think, Member Patel, I would generally kind of maybe be against something like this, only because I think that I'm thinking in my brain where there may be a conversation with a hotel owner who says, I've got a smaller hotel, and if you build more hotels of this size, this, I guess type, if you will, that it will chip away maybe at the existing kind of low room stock or even a larger hotel. But in my brain, I've stayed at many, many hotels of various sizes, whether it be just a few rooms or a gigantic, high-rise type skyscraper-looking hotel. And I think there's also a quality, debate here where we could say just because you have 60 rooms doesn't mean that the 60-room hotel down the street is the same exact product as the one that I'm staying at, which gives me way better service. It's cleaner, more well-lit, is part of a brand name where I'm accruing points or something like that. Do you have maybe thoughts about that? Because I'm just trying to caution myself from reacting to this plea to just do it by maybe room number or even adding amenities as a way to set that standard.
Sure. So let me tell you where my thought process came from. One, like Mayor said, 12 years ago, I'd kind of talked to him because there was a smaller hotel that was trying to come into our town, if you remember, Mayor Cole. Obviously, it got shut down. But before the pandemic, if you remember, Mayor Cole, there was a hotel that was approved by the post office on Cullen. And there were a couple of smaller hotels, matter of fact, 2 other hotels that were, I believe, got approved. Now, the problem is, Councilmember Hernandez, you guys are looking at what's going to happen today. What my fear is what's happening in cities like Seabrook. If you're not proactive today, you're going to continue to get this. And if you guys ever want to build a conference center hotel, which I'm assuming is everybody's long-term plan, you can't have these many hotels. And again, it will deteriorate your surrounding. Go look down in Calute. If you go down in Calute, you drive on 288, you will see what happens. Eventually, these small hotels do deflag, and they will not put in investment in. Now, what Mayor Cole said, you look at Hilton Garden Inn, it's too large of a property. First of all, today's cost, about $140,000 a door. So a 100-room hotel is costing you about $14 million. You're not going to let that investment go down, right? Take that same, you build something smaller, you might get away with about $100,000 a key. Now, $100,000 a key, build 35, 40, may look nice. Not saying it's not. But long-term wise, again, this is just a thought for long-term planning. It is not to say, hey, we're going to do this today. We need to do it right away. All I'm saying is we have an opportunity to put the minimum, just like we don't want a bunch of smoke shops and massage parlors. Same kind of concept.
So can I maybe, as a follow-up for if this comes back for future discussion, just trying to understand, I don't even know what this footprint of a 60-room hotel would be versus 120 room. I'm assuming you could make it 2 stories or possibly 3. I don't know generally what that footprint is like. So maybe if we can get an idea of where hotels like this could exist in the city, so we can kind of see what if this is going to be an issue, where those areas would be. And I just don't know that we would really naturally get a whole lot of hotels given our current kind of stock currently. I don't know if it's really worth putting a lot of effort into, but I could be wrong. I would just like to see maybe where those opportunities are. I'll yield there. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Member Patel.
I think the point, we had a couple that were approved and they didn't move forward because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And, they halted. I think the reason we haven't seen anything in the last several years is because of the pandemic. I mean, nobody was going to go and build a hotel in the middle of a pandemic. And I think what Member Patel's just trying to do is let's get out in front of not necessarily a problem today, but let's make sure that we have some type of minimum requirements tomorrow for coming up. John, is there any minimum requirements for a hotel in our UDC today?
There are no minimum requirements that directly apply to hotels. They would have to meet the minimum commercial development standards for any project, and so nothing specific.
And I think to the point of being business friendly and quick to move through. Obviously, a CUP is quicker than a full zone change or a PD or anything like that. But I think at least having something, so if somebody comes in, what if we get into it and says, well, we want a minimum of 120, or we want a minimum of 100. Somebody that's looking at our community, it'd be kind of nice to have, at a minimum, you need to have X, Y, and Z. And I could also say, a boutique hotel that is smaller, to your point, is not necessarily something we would want to do away with, right? There are boutique hotels that are super, super high end, but having some kind of a guide. I think what ultimately this would just be some kind of a guide in our code that you need to have these types of minimum requirements. Through a CUP process, they can ask for anything that they ultimately need, and we can grant it or not. I think that's the only thing that we're talking about here, is actually putting something in the UDC, so when somebody does look at our code, they have some idea of what we're looking for. That's all. Did you have a follow-up? Okay. Member Carbone?
Mayor, yeah, you took my comments. I think giving those standards up front now versus 3 months into a CUP process and they come in with 60 rooms, I'd rather set that standard now. And if they do come in, staff's going to say, hey, it doesn't meet this standard or this standard. Y'all adopted these standards way back in 2023, but we can still approve it. So I think setting that, and yeah, it's probably not an issue this year, next year, but 10 years from now, when half the hotels are deflagged and we're not worried about sex trafficking in massage parlors, we're worried about the hourly stays. It'd be nice to look back on this. So also, we do have a CVB, so next time they meet, I'd love to get their opinion, just so we can have that on the record. There's hoteliers there, but I'd be in favor of at least putting some guidelines in the UDC.
Rivera?
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, so when you have a Marriott or Hilton or something along those lines, what I would consider a mainstream type hotel, do they periodically have inspections or something like that where they come into your hotel to make sure that you're meeting their standards? Is that?
Yes, sir. It's twice a year, unannounced. They do come. But you got to remember, these agreements, Marriott and Hilton are 20 years, but a Choice Hotel, which is a Comfort Suites and Comfort Sleep-Ins, are only 5-year agreements. And then you can do whatever you want. You can either reinvest or you can lose your flag. So, again, look, my point here is not to put more burdensome process at all. Councilmember Kamkar is just to say, going in the future, I want my community to get better, bigger, right? We talked about this earlier in our meeting upstairs. I think Ms. Dina Hanks said it best, like, it just doesn't feel like consistent. And so for me, this was one of the things, from my industry's point of view, I see happening, right? And I'm just telling you, beware. That's it.
Member Patel, I'm deeply appreciative. I know you bring a wealth of professional experience in the space, and trust your guidance on it. It's just fundamentally for me, it feels like more regulation. And I think regulation means time and money and energy and effort. It's just generally where I'm at. I do think if we had written guidelines that sat in the sideline and came out of our drawer, I don't think anything that you've said is unreasonable. 120 rooms, 3,000, those are all viable. It's just, for me, it's a governance point of view item. But I respect where you're going. You have a lot more experience in this space than I do. I know about houses and land development. I don't know a damn thing about hotels. So if you tell me this is a pressing issue, I think we need to look at it. But I think there's methods, there's ways and means. I think for me, this is more of a ways and means issue than it is is it a good idea, bad idea?
Okay, I'll just continue with my line of questioning. I guess some of the other things that, when you go through and you have what I would call a mainstream, or you call it a flagged hotel. I am good with having the higher end hotels and things of that sort. Everybody knows that I want Pearland to continue to grow and thrive and be successful, and everybody associated with Pearland to do that. And I want us to have a clean city. Now, if they're doing annual inspections or biannual inspections, that lends a lot of credibility. If you have an unflagged hotel, who does those inspections?
Nobody.
Okay, so it's up to the owner's discretion.
Yes.
I gotcha. All right, thank you.
Mr. Patel, if we were to look at a guide to even look at, I know we've done this in other ordinances and other things, we go and look at other cities. You mentioned Grapevine. Who else out here has, taken a look at what they've done from a code perspective?
I don't know anybody else around here. Okay. Grapevine was the only one that I knew of, and that's where the idea generated in my head, because they've done a fantastic job around their Bass Pro Shop and their, I think, Grapevine Mills. And so, again, my point was, going in the future, where do you want us, our community to be, right? So that was only my goal, trying our process on this to say, look, this is something we should long-term consider.
Yeah. All right. I guess moving forward, Darren, Trent, do you see a consensus to bring this back, or where do y'all see? Yeah.
I'm not sure I saw complete consensus. We could potentially bring back some additional information on what some others have done and see if that's something that you just want to take a look at.
Share out in memo form first.
I was going to say I'm counting, and right now I've heard, obviously, Councilmember Patel put the item on the agenda, and I heard Councilmember Carbone, and then I believe Councilmember Cade indicated, and so that was 3 individuals who indicated that they were in favor of at least exploring this option.
Aaron, I'd be willing to help out.
I'm sorry?
I'd be willing to help out to take a look at it.
Okay, that.
Darren, can I ask?
That's 4.
I'm just curious, how, from like a room and amenities perspective, that we would even be able to do that. It's like, to me, like saying I know we have the CUP for like gas stations, for instance, but what if we just put out a blanket thing, all gas stations must have a car wash and a Wendy's, and, is that, how do we do that? Or theaters must have 12 screens at least, that seems, I don't know how we're able to do that?
Well, obviously, I think the concern is, and I don't know, Trent wants to add something to this, but when you're looking at a conditional use permit, you obviously have the ability to put conditions. And so that's something you can do during that process. By having a minimum set of standards, what you do is you avoid those conditions that you place, and you could still do that even with new minimum standards. But what you do is you take out the arbitrary nature of the granting of a conditional use permit by establishing that. Now, what those standards would be, I don't know the answer to that yet. And I think that's where I think what Trent was saying is that we can look at that and explore that, working with planning department, maybe look at other communities to see what they are doing as using their tools and their development guidelines. So Trent, I'm going to go ahead and pass that off to you now.
Sure. So I think the Grapevine example is, I took a look at that, and it still uses the CUP process, but they've got further definitions of different hotels. And so you've got your base zoning, and then there are different ways that you can define that as a CUP in those different zonings. Is kind of what they've done. So it's still a CUP, so I think it meets what Darren's talking about. And so I think that's where we'd go is take a look at that and see if there's some other cities, and just look at the structure of that and how that works. And then if we want to set our own standards, we'd have to then come up with those as well.
Member Cade?
Is somebody said something about by the hour? Is if they I'm being kind of serious here though. If they deflag, is that something they could then do charge by the hour or by the week? Is that a real thing?
I mean, look, Member Cade, I'll tell you, it could happen today. It doesn't matter. You don't have, hotel's a hotel. But the chances increase significantly, right? I'm just telling you, that's coming from, if you get a chance, go on Expedia, because they're not regulated by a franchise. They're not plugged in and following any rules. That once you become independent, it is what it is.
I would be interested in having that be part of it.
Just for the sake of the discussion, should we just look at no unfranchised hotels are allowed? We could do that and not wade into this.
Well, that goes back into what I said earlier. You can't open an independent burger joint now. You have to open a Burger King or a Wendy's.
When I said unflagged or not.
Yeah.
This feels slippery. That's all I'm saying. Sorry, I'm speaking out, but I just feel like if that's the goal, is to have flagged restaurants or flagged businesses, let's have that be the item.
I haven't heard that. What I've heard is we want to make sure that we rise the level of our expectation. We can do that currently. It just means that we scrutinize even harder a CUP as it comes through. But I think to Member Carbone's point and mine, it'd be nice to at least give them something in writing up front. This is kind of our expectation level, rather than throwing a dart against a dartboard and coming in here and spending several thousands of dollars, and we go, we really want to see a minimum X number. That's my only thing. And to Member Cade's point, and that you just made, the last thing we want is an hourly motel in our city.
I'd much rather have an independent burger place than an hourly motel by my house.
Right, and to that point, we have strip centers that have become D centers, and they become that way because they don't have the money to reinvest. It's the same thing in a hotel. They don't have the money to reinvest. We have office buildings. They don't have the money to reinvest, and so it becomes a different type of clientele. It becomes a different types of renter, different type of property over time. We're just trying to encourage people, making sure that they make that investment up front and the reinvestment X number of years later. So it sounds like we've got at least 4. Go ahead.
One more question, which I meant to follow up a while back, and this actually just reminded me of it. To get an overview, I think John, maybe, I don't know, a year ago now, sent an email for a clearer process of how, if we wanted to revoke a CUP, we could, not just for the massage parlors, but just in general. In an instance like this where a hotel requires a CUP, council has the prerogative to revoke a conditional use permit. Is that correct?
Correct, but I would let Darren speak to the specifics of that.
Get caught in
a CUP can be revoked if there are conditions that they're not complying with.
Okay.
What would happen legally if they couldn't operate anymore? Say we removed the CUP, so could a hotel operate?
Not if we revoked their CUP. I mean, obviously, you'd be looking at a larger legal issue and probably a battle on your hand, but yeah.
That's where I was
Well,
going.
if they don't have the money to reinvest in their property, how are they going to fight a city? I mean, yeah, exactly. I kind of see that as.
But a lender might.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It's just, I think we kind of beat this one. I think we have enough to at least bring something back to take a look at. But I think we ought to be wise to the next part of development. And to the point, doesn't necessarily mean number of rooms isn't necessarily the issue. It's the overall investment and the overall value that they're trying to bring. Like I said, we want to redo Old Town Site. A boutique hotel in the Old Town Site could be perfect for that, but that doesn't necessarily make it inexpensive or cheap or something of that nature. So with that, Member Patel, did you have number 2, Management District?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I was hoping this would be a shorter meeting than 2 weeks ago, but I guess not.
Spoke too soon.
Yeah, right. So, as you know, I was served on the Pearland Management District 2. And one of the issues I have, Mr. Tom Tribble, who's a board member, he was kind enough to give me his time today, is here. One of the issues I have, obviously, is that board is made up of 7 people, but 4 of the people are from the same property, which is one is from CBL Mall. Now, I guess a new appointment got from CBS Mall or CBL Town Center, and then 2 of the appointees are with Weismer Group, and they pretty much control that board. And I'm not a fan, and I believe Councilmember Kamkar, there used to be a guy named Skip who was a resident off Pearland at one point, and then he moved to Houston. And I think a few years ago you said you wanted more local residents to serve on boards. So what I would propose, if I know my understanding is I talked to Darren that this is at will of City Council to appoint them. They can certainly recommend it, but it's City Council's will to appoint it. What I'm asking is if there is possibility of asking the management district to set rules that they have 1 person per property and allow certain small businesses to be represented. Right now, majority of the board members are basically controlling that board, and there's not a fair representation for the minority small business owners on there. So I would like the board some direction to be sent to the management district. Thank you.
Any questions, follow up?
Yeah, I know, Matt, you do a lot of work with these management districts. Any thoughts, comments?
I would say if council wants to ask the board that and get the board's input, they could surely do that. Obviously, you have to be representative of an owner in the district. So residency in the city is not a requirement to be on the district. You need to be an owner or represent an owner of property in the district. That's with all 3 of our management districts.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Member Kamkar.
Yeah. Matt, for PMD2, just for the folks who are not in this space all the time, roughly speaking, what are the geographical boundaries of that area?
So it goes, from Magnolia all the way up to 288, both, on the west and east side of the 288. It's a 288 corridor.
Yeah, I'll see a follow-up question, point of information. How many residents live in that corridor? How many houses?
There would probably be 2 single-family homes, and then there would be the apartments at the Pearland Town Center would be the only people that would be, residents of the actual district.
Roughly speaking, how many businesses? Obviously, I'm asking a broad question, but are we talking hundreds, tens, tens of hundreds?
There'd be hundreds of businesses in the 288 corridor. I couldn't give you an exact number, but it'd be obviously in the hundreds.
To back up Member Patel, and I did say this on the record, it might have been a year ago, if you have somebody who's a resident who is applicable and they pay Pearland taxes, they deal with all the issues that we deal with, that's my preference. I also want to add, we also have to have people that are eligible who can do that. And so we may be winnowing the pool from thousands to hundreds to maybe tens. And I think we just have to be very aware of that and who that is. If there's somebody who's qualified, who's a business owner, who works there, who lives here, let's do it. But I think there's also an issue in the MUDs that many people here, you know, there's hundreds of people, in some cases thousands. They can go run, they can go be appointed. And so the composition is important, but also eligible. And so that's would be my only concerns. I don't disagree. I would love to have some hometown folks, and I just want to reiterate that. But we have to make sure we can stay within the guidelines, and so that would be my concern. So,
Questions, comments? Member Hernandez?
I like this idea. Wanted to add that we also ask them to please include resumes for anyone that they recommend for appointment. That would be fantastic. And to the question that Member Campar just asked, though, about business owners, Matt, did you say they had to own land within the district, or they just had to have a business in the district?
Aaron, do you want to answer it? There's like 7 criterias, but I mean, I would say in general you have to be ownership or represent an owner.
Excuse me, it is a state law provision, Chapter 375, the municipal management districts in general. And there are specific qualifications. Either you can be an owner of property in the district, that's one. You could be an owner of stock of a corporate owner of property in the district. An owner of a beneficial interest in a trust that owns property in the district. And finally, an agent, an employee, or a tenant of a person of those people I just named with respect to the stock, the trust, or an owner of property.
Wow. Okay, so if
a resident, obviously, if you actually live in the district, you could be a member too.
Nah, you would have to own the property.
If you lived in a house, yeah.
I'm just saying, because a resident in an apartment would not qualify.
And so if you were leasing, let's say, an ice cream shop, you would have to have like the landlord recommend you. Is that what you're saying?
The other criteria that we will get people on, though, is if they own. So if I'm a ice cream shop, I probably own my equipment. And so I may pay $60 a year in personal property tax. But if you own personal property in the district, then you're also eligible to serve. So that's how tenants, people that maybe aren't the landlord, could also be eligible to serve.
Okay. So, I mean, it does sound like we would have a decent sized potential pool, but I don't even know how they would even find out about this. So I would love for there to be a better concerted effort to try to recruit people into these so that they can serve. Let's see, the resumes, the other questions. I think that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Good deal.
Question. How often do these positions turn over, Matt? Are they like a
I just looked, this board was created, PMMD2 was created in 2013, and we only have 2 board members that are original board members. Mr. Patel would have been the 3rd that would have been an original board member. So in 10 years, we've turned over a little more than half, 60% of the people.
How many of them?
I mean, we only meet, PMMD2's met maybe average, I'd say 3 to 5 times a year. So it's not like they meet a lot.
I guess I know that they have the ability to vote, and from a taxing perspective that ultimately comes to council, but and we've dealt with that last year. I guess my concern a little bit is you said Weitzman and these other large big box retailers, right, that have representatives on this particular board, but I'm making a leap of faith here. Maybe they're on the other management districts as well, not those same individuals, but similar in job description, I guess, right? So they're more property managers than they are anything, and these retailers may be national brands and don't necessarily really care about Pearland nor the taxing entity in and of itself. So I would really encourage these management districts to have more of a focus on individuals who own property, in the owners of the property, participating. And Darren, I know that we don't have any control over that because we're governed by Section 375, but I think that would go a long way in actually helping to plan these areas and have individuals who have a lot of skin in the game in those meetings.
Just to clarify, you do have the control over that. Because those are the people who are qualified, but ultimately nobody makes it to that board without being approved by the city council.
I got you.
So if there's somebody that's not an owner and let's say they're an agent, if you wanted to say, no, we don't want an agent of the owner, we want an owner of real property in the district, you can do that.
They have more control, right, of maintenance in those areas? Do they have control?
They
over
appoint the people, and then you have to approve them. So nobody gets on the board unless they're approved by city council.
Yeah, I understand.
Remember,
Okay.
Barry, to your question just now, so MMD2, their purpose is for the maintenance of the 288 corridor and the improvements that are going in right now.
Right.
That they're
So they contract
I wouldn't say
those
their sole
individuals.
purpose, but their main purpose is the tax that's being applied is captured to maintain the 288 improvement. And Matt, does that?
Yes, sir. I mean, Mayor, this was a partnership between the city and the EDC that we started back in 2013 in the attempt to, beautify and clean up the corridor and make public improvements to the corridor.
And so if we have a situation where these individuals maintain their own budgets and things of that sort, what happens if one of these management districts doesn't work out? They're not collecting enough tax to maintain the maintenance of the actual district itself. It's fully backed by the city, right?
I would maybe defer to Darren, but I think, obviously if the city ever got rid of one of these districts, which I think that would really be the possibility, the city would have to take on the responsibilities of that district.
Either the city or the EDC would have to take on the cost and the responsibilities of maintaining that.
I meant the big city brought.
Correct. We would step into the we would step into the shoes
we would
of
no
the
longer
district.
maintain it, and we'd let it go back to TxDOT, and they mow it 3 times a year.
Well, yeah. I'm just trying to wrap my head around the individuals that would be on that board for myself personally, because we have full control over who gets on that board. But
So, and that's, the sole, I don't know if it's the exact sole purpose, but I believe it's pretty much 100% of where all the dollars generated by that district right now goes into the maintenance of that district.
I'm sure there's a little bit of,
Operational
there's a little
costs.
bit of operation and administration just to make sure, everything's done. There's somebody that sends out a tax bill, collects it, manages those types of things. My only concern, the board composition, I think it can be, anything that this council wants it to be. My only comment is just to make sure the 288 corridor is maintained. We've just spent
$14 million.
Well, I think all in closer to 20 million in beautifying with everything that's out there. And the last thing I'd want is, to see that, off or not, and we can't maintain it. So I want to make sure that whatever we're doing, that we maintain that corridor, and it, gets mature, looks good. And yeah, you have property owners that are in that. They certainly want to make sure that it's maintained and done. So my only thing is making sure that there's enough dollars raised every year to make sure that we maintain it. We know that cost isn't going down. It's only going to go up over time. So obviously, property values are going up. So we just want to make sure that that's done. The composition of the board, I'm open for council to say how they want that to be. Just want to make sure that we have people on that board, same goals in mind, and that's making sure that that corridor is maintained. Any other questions, comments? Did we get any direction? Same question as last time.
Well, I think right now, I think there was a recommendation at least to share with the management districts sort of the desire to expand the representation, and so that can be done. But as far as direction, I think the state law provides most of the direction with respect to the board representation, city council's actions on that. I think Matt indicated he would be visiting with those boards to at least express the council's desire with respect to that.
Can I ask one more question? Is there a limit to how many people can be on that board?
is?
Yes, each one is set by statute, because these were all legislatively created. And so, what's the numbers? It can be expanded, actually, but.
I think they can. All three districts are a little different, but I don't remember what the limits and such.
But do you know the current membership right now?
All three districts have 7 members.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll just add one more thing, Mayor. I think we need to do a better job at people being able to find about these districts and be applying for these districts, because I know we have made an effort to go cherry pick some of these people to serve on the board. And so most of the people who are tenants in there don't even know that the board is controlling their taxes, right? Everybody complains about the city tax. No one reads the tax bill and realizes there's so many different entities. And, you know, my I guess, conundrum is the tenants, the owners of these large retail sit on there. They're the ones who are raising their tax rate on these districts and then passing on to their tenants on their net lease, right? And so in their point of view, they have nothing to lose because they're going to say, well, that's just the tax rate. Well, what most of these tenants, I bet you 99.9% don't realize that the owners of those retail serve on these boards and are controlling their tax rate. That is a very interesting point. If you go ask any of these lease people in these retails, do you know that you pay a management district tax, which is controlled and served by your own owners?
So just one thing to add, as far as the access to applications and things like that, we've just recently updated all the boards and commissions information on the city's website. So we do have links to the management district websites as well as the applications for those management districts. Just kind of finished that up in the last week or so and was going to share that out here shortly, but glad to share that out tonight.
Just for trying to get more educated on this and I hate to put more work on the team, but for one of the next Thursday reports, can we have information on who are the top 10 taxpayers and kind of what their yearly budget is? I can't speak to those, and so I don't have a lot of information.
Sure. I think we've got a memo that was out published a while back. I don't know if it was ever shared with council, but it kind of takes a look at who the taxpayers are within the district and who the top ones are, so we can get that information,
just
share that as well.
Their budget was for last year or the last couple of years, because I know it's going to change now with.
Yeah, I know we talked about it when we talked about the homestead exemption or the homestead properties within the district.
They have two that.
I'm sure it's changed a little bit since then, right?
Sure.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, we're going to move forward in our agenda to go into executive session. Executive session under section 551.071, consultation with city attorney regarding contractual matters. So at this time, at 7:53, we'll retire into exec session. All right, council has come back from executive session at 9:33. With that, we will move to, well, there is no action item coming out of executive session. With that, I understand we may have a reconsideration of item number, new business item number 4.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to reconsider new business item number 4, consideration and possible action resolution number R2023-174. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Darren, on a reconsideration, we have to vote to reconsider first and then vote on the item?
Yes, it's the motion to reconsider is debatable. If there's no debate, you'll take a vote on that first, and then we'll move into the reconsideration.
Got it. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns on the reconsideration?
Mayor, would you just explain why, since that question was brought up by Councilmember Carbone, what the rate difference is?
Yeah,
for the record?
real quick, couple things. One, I think there was some concern that Boyer was not here. So our policy states that if it's new business, new contract, we want somebody here. If it's a renewal, it's not required to be here. Trent, would you answer the question on the difference between the journeyman rate and the master's rate?
Sure, and on the renewal, that's if there's no price increase or it's within the CPI called for in the contract on a renewal. And then so the question was on the rate between the journeyman and the master electrician, and so we got some further information on that. The journeyman includes the truck, equipment, and supply, or everything he needs to do the job. Whereas the master electrician, it doesn't include those because it's really the journeyman that's working under the master electrician that's doing most of the bulk of the work that we do.
So, any other questions on the reconsideration?
So as far as, could you just bring up the pricing on it real quick?
Sure. So that was in the estimated amount of $500,000.
The rate, yeah.
So the actual rates.
If I would just recommendation is that we go ahead and vote on the motion to reconsider because we're sort of reconsidering right now. So if we could
That's
get
fine.
that, let's go ahead and get that taken care of first and then move into that.
Okay. You said it was debatable, so I was just, any other questions on reconsideration? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, we'll call for the vote on the reconsideration of item number 4.
Mayor Pro Tem Koza,
Aye.
Member Carbone,
Aye.
Member Kamkar,
Aye.
Member Hernandez,
Aye.
Member Cade,
Aye.
Member Barry,
Aye.
Member Patel.
Aye.
The motion passes 7-0.
So with that, now we have a motion, we need a motion on the table to,
No, you can go ahead and go into, we're into, the motion was made to reconsider, so now we're into reconsideration.
so there's no motion needed to put it on.
Yeah, because the motion was made to reconsider that item, and so we are now in reconsideration. We can take a vote after the discussion.
Any other questions, comments? I don't know if we have found your question yet. You wanted to see the rates.
Well, I mean, yeah, I just want to know, is this a typo? Is this, we got it backwards? I mean, how do we know, if we're going to vote on something and we don't know the numbers are right, how do we know what we're going to be charged?
So my understanding is the numbers are right, and the explanation on the journeyman is that that rate includes the truck and the tools to do the work, because the journeyman typically does all the service work, and the master holds the license, produces the quotes, and oversees the journeyman.
So his hourly rate's going to be less because of that.
Okay, fair enough.
Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary will vote on the item.
Mayor Pro Tem Koza,
Aye.
Member Carbone,
Aye.
Member Kamkar,
Aye.
Member Hernandez,
Aye.
Member Cade,
No.
Member Barry,
Aye.
Member Patel.
Aye.
The motion passes 6-1.
All right, with that, we will move to adjournment at 9:38.